So please join me in welcoming Karen Leong.
Thank you so much, Priya. You know, whatever Priya said was the favorite part of my talk. The end. It's such a pleasure to see all of you here. Has it been a long day?
Yes.
And it has been a longer journey, I'm sure, and the journey continues. Do you know what the good news is? My talk today is very targeted. So it's shorter than a TED Talk, but yet the challenge for me is to see how I can leave you with at least 1 or 2 actions that you can start putting in place immediately, and hopefully that will change the game for you. And what I would like to focus on today is, just understanding what you guys have been through and want to achieve, is that this one thought, that no matter what life throws at you, how can you still stay positive, proactive, and focused on possibilities? Because if you look at life, and it's a guarantee that as you travel through life, life is going to throw a lot of things at you. I see a lot of nods, yes. Different kinds of things. Now let's focus on 2 main things. Sometimes it throws the big stuff. That's what we call the mega adversities. I mean, the heavy stuff like a loss of a parent, maybe a disability that you've gotten, or a serious illness. I mean, these mega adversities can derail you and bring you down. But the good news is, they don't happen that often. And because you're so huge, when it happens, you are very focused on taking it down. And very often, these mega adversities are what brings out the hidden strengths that you never knew you had. Besides the mega adversities, we have the other kind of adversities, the smaller ones. You have the minor irritants, the minor obstacles that come at you, and usually it's every single day. And these minor stuff, why they're so potent, is because they're often invisible. They come at you under the radar, they hit you when you don't realize it, but when they get at you, you're not sure why. You feel your confidence gets eroded. You feel your energy getting sapped. You feel negative, and you feel that maybe you can't achieve as much as you want to. Now, what I want to focus on today are the seemingly invisible minor obstacles. And because these are the ones that are often relentless. Because they're like, how a river cuts through a mountain? It chips at you every single time, but yet it gets you. So what we're going to look at are 3 of the most common types of minor obstacles. Number 1, problems. I mean, we all have problems, right? Some more than others. Number 2, challenging people. We also know some of these. Now, don't turn to the person next to you. Well, and thirdly, we have what lies within. So now let's first focus on problems. To do that, I'm going to ask you to make a list of all the problems you had in your life. No, okay, we're just going to put that aside, because that's depressing. So what we're going to do is, I'm going to ask you just to listen to a story, and this is a real story. It's a client of mine who once shared that the very first job he had was manning the customer service counter at a shopping mall. You know those people who just, sit down there and wait for somebody to pay attention and ask them some questions? But the interesting thing is, every day, since the first day at work, there will be people coming to the counter and asking whether there was a particular product being sold in that shopping center. And you must imagine that, they kept asking that his colleague who was sitting next to him actually complained, "Oh my God, this is so irritating. We should just put a sign at the counter saying, 'There is no such product,' the end." What is really interesting, that after 30 days on the job, he quit. Guess what he did? And guess?
He made that product.
Thank you. See, you guys are in the right place. Yes, short of bagging, borrowing, and stealing, he actually raised enough money to set up a shop selling that particular product in the mall. And today, he owns more than, I think 20 outlets around Asia Pacific, and he's considered a very successful businessman. So why did I share this story with you? Because opportunity knocks at our door every day, but very often it wears a disguise. It's disguised as problems. And in every situation where there is one person who will look at it and see a problem, and there is another person who will look at it and see a opportunity. Which one are you? Do you see problems or do you see opportunities? And it's not surprising, if you think back in all of history, more than 90% of all inventions are based on problems, solving problems. Now just look at all the products that we take for granted in today's life. I'm just going to give you an example. Have you been to the supermarket? Have you actually pushed a shopping cart or a trolley? Do you know the story behind the supermarket trolley? It started in the 1930s, where there was a supermarket owner who was facing a very big problem. Financial ruin. People were not buying enough. So as he sat there late one night battling this problem, he asked himself, how can I make people buy more? And then he got an idea. Why don't I make their shopping baskets bigger? Right? So they are more motivated to put more stuff in. But then there was yet another problem. If the baskets were bigger, what happens? It's too heavy. They're not going to be walking around and getting more stuff. And then he asked himself, how do I make it easier? That's when the idea came. I'm going to stick some wheels under the basket. And do you know what is really fascinating? His invention, the supermarket trolley, has made him more money than he ever imagined, more than his supermarket business. And you're looking at the 1930s, right? He retired a multi-millionaire just because of one problem. So my question to you is, when you see a problem, what do you ask yourself? You want to know a magic question? This magic question that I'm going to share with you is more powerful than Harry Potter's wand. Because when you actually wave it, you will get the answer how to uncover the hidden opportunity in every single problem. Guess what it is? 3 letters. W, T, O. I didn't hear any F's, did I? Okay. So whenever you see a problem, just ask yourself, what's the opportunity? The amazing thing is, by asking that question, your mind gets targeted at finding the answer. Sometimes the best things are the simplest things. So that's what we've talked about problems. Shall we move on to challenging people? We like that. We have a lot of them in our lives, don't we? Now let's look at. I'm going to ask you that for challenging people, I had lots of experiences with people who are very aggressive, very exertive. And I remember one day when I was leading a master class, there was this gentleman that seemed bent on going against every single viewpoint that was raised, including mine. And I could feel my irritation rising, but more importantly, I noticed that everybody was getting very irritated and defensive. And I knew I had to do something. And that's when I asked the class this question. What do you learn more from? Do you learn more from something that is comforting? Or do you learn more from something that is challenging and uncomfortable? I'm going to ask you this question also. If you think about it, what do you learn more from? Something that's comfortable? or challenging and uncomfortable? You guys are all in the right place. You know all my answers. But it's not surprising, right? That we often learn more from challenging people and challenging situations. Because if something makes us feel comfortable, it's because it reinforces our worldview. But if something is uncomfortable, it actually widens our horizons. It allows us to learn from a different point of view. And so it's not surprising. I mean, think about it. Some of the most successful businesses and business owners thrive because there are differences. I mean, marriages also, right? You've heard opposites attract. And so even in my case, my co-director Moko is going to be speaking next. And he's a very challenging guy. Don't tell him that. But because we have such different viewpoints, and that's why we complement each other's strengths and we widen our horizons. And that's why we're very excited that just very soon next month we're opening our next office in Sweden. And it wouldn't have been possible without expanding our horizons from Asia to global. So that's what I would like you to leave with in terms of challenging people. Whenever you meet a challenging person, instead of being overwhelmed and defensive and defending your idea to death, take a step back, take a deep breath, and ask yourself this question. What can I learn from this? And when you do that, you will notice how the mind has steps back and is able to extract lessons. And now I'm going to move on to my third point. What lies within? And to do this, I'm going to first issue you a challenge. Are you all ready for a challenge? Okay, and every role is going to be a group. And each group, we want to see which role is going to make this happen. And you only have 10 seconds. Okay, I'm going to give you the instructions first. But before you act, I will give each of you 5 seconds to think before we act. Are you ready for the challenge? Yes. Now the challenge is, can you ensure that for each role, the person here on my right, and that's on your left, within 10 seconds, you are able to teleport him or her to the first floor. Okay, that's the challenge. Now I'm going to give you 5 seconds to think. Don't discuss with each other. Just think how you're going to make it happen or whether it's possible. The 5 seconds is up. But before you go, I see some people already rushing off. I wanted to first ask you, what were you thinking during those 5 seconds that I gave you? What were you thinking? You're getting in the right place. Because when I've done this experiment, there are often two kinds of people. One group would think, can this be done? Can I do it? And the other group would think, how can this be done? How can I do it? Now, what's the difference between these two? What's the difference between can I do it and how can I do it? It's only the difference of one word. And if you immediately ask, can I do it? What you are doing is questioning your capability. Now actually you're questioning the perception of your capability. Because remember, we never really know how much we are capable of until we're pushed to the edge. And if your first question is, how can I do it? That means you assume you have the capability. You assume the task can be done. And the mind then, you would be amazed at how creative and confident your mind goes in searching for solutions. So which question do you ask yourself more of? Is it can I do it? Or how can I do it? Do you know the good news? Do you know that all of us when we were born asking, how can I do it? You look at little children under the age of 7. 7 is when they get critical analysis. Under the age of 7, young children, when there is a challenge put in front of them, they're only thinking of how, not can. So that means all you need to do is to tap back into your under 7-year-old. Tap back into that natural, creative, solutions-focused mind, because it all lies within. So to sum up, I'd like to again re-emphasize 3 things. And these are the 3 magic questions that I would like to put forth. Number 1. What is number 1? Whenever you meet a problem, what's the question you ask? WTO, what's the opportunity in this? Number 2, when you meet a challenging person, what do you ask? What can I learn from this? Number 3, when you meet a new challenge, something unfamiliar that you may not know, ask yourself, how can I? And just remember, the results you get are based on the questions you ask. Thank you.